establish a prestigious new academic chair, to thank all of the people being honored here today, starting with the donors, David and Deborah Humphreys, the wonderful person after whom they chose to name the chair, Bob Josefsberg, and the eminently worthy recipient holder of the first chair, Scott Sundby. So you will hear from and about the various constituents today. I just wanted to welcome you and thank you all so much for coming out for this glorious occasion. And with that, I will turn it over to our president, Dr. Julio Frank.
We're here for something that's really worthy of great celebration, which is the installation of the Robert C. Josefsberg Endowed Chair in Criminal Justice Advocacy. I really like these ceremonies where we provide endowed chairs because, they are really the ceremonies where we see this convergence between talent and generosity, and seldom you see that those vividly expressed, that convergence so vividly expressed as when we, through the generosity of our donors, endow a chair that honors a very distinguished person and then it's occupied by an equally distinguished faculty member. It's just like a perfect circle. And it does remind us of what philanthropy is really about. The word philanthropy derives from the ancient Greek root word philanthropia, which has two pieces. Philein, which means to love, and anthropos, which of course means humankind. So it is literally the love of humankind that it gets expressed through philanthropic gifts. And universities rely heavily on philanthropy, but and particularly on endowment gifts that increase and provide the stability that universities need to exist for very long periods of time. This university is about to turn 100, and it's still a very young university compared to Bologna with 1,000 years, and Cambridge and Oxford with 800, and here Harvard almost about 400 years old. But what makes that enduring difference is exactly endowment. And chairs are one way of giving a human face to endowment. The concept of endowment gets personified through name chairs. And it is also the most prestigious position in academia is to receive or be seated at an endowed chair, a name chair. So it is also an incredible instrument that helps us to attract exceptional talent. Now, these endowed chairs have a long and very illustrious history, actually going back to the Roman Empire, and they have this ability to stand the test of time. And there are one example I always like to quote is the Lucasian Chair in Mathematics at Cambridge University, which was established in the 1660s and was held at one time by Sir Isaac Newton, and then was held 3 centuries later by the late Stephen Hawking. And then there's a connection with the University of Miami because another Lucasian chair holder was Paul Dirac, who was a member of the University of Miami Center for Theoretical Studies back in the early 60s, in the late 60s and early 70s. So you can see those connections going, from the 17th century in Cambridge all the way to Miami in the 20th century. And that's what endowed chairs allow us. The word itself, we talk about chairs, and it is a piece of furniture, but it is really a symbolic seat. It's the seat of knowledge and the seat of authority. The word comes originally from the Greek cathedra, which means a seat, a chair. And we get the word cathedral from that, which is where the seat of the bishop lies. With the emergence of universities in the Middle Ages, associated with the church, the seat of knowledge, of secular knowledge, was also a cathedra. And for those of you who speak Spanish, the highest rank of an academic person is to be a catedrático, which means a holder of a chair. So that's the symbolism, so that we don't think it's just a piece of furniture and one more activity. It's a big deal for a university to have a cathedral. By the way, here, endowed chairs here in the United States, the first endowed chair was endowed in 1721. It was the Hollis Professorship of Divinity at Harvard University, which there is still a Hollis Professor of Divinity at Harvard to this date. That is why, for us, one of our strategic objectives as we head to our centennial, to our 100th anniversary, has been to establish 100 endowed positions. And I am happy to tell you that with the chair that we are inaugurating today, we are up to 94 of those. So we're close to our goal. And we still have 745 days as of today towards our centennial. So we're looking for other lovers of humankind, other philanthropists to endow the remaining 4 chairs, and then we're going to try to exceed that record. So I really want to express my deepest gratitude to Deborah and David Humphreys for their generosity, for making this event possible. It is truly an act of philanthropy in that sense. And with that, to move us forward, let me turn the podium to our provost, Jeffrey Dirk. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to speak a little code here for a moment because we're all winners today. So thank you, Julio. So good afternoon, everyone. It's really my pleasure to join all of you here today in the installation of the Robert C. Josefsberg Endowed Chair in Criminal Justice or Criminal Defense Advocacy. To all those present who support the University of Miami Law, thank you for your loyalty and for sharing this special occasion with us. We're here to celebrate the Josefsberg Endowed Chair in Criminal Defense Advocacy, established in the honor of Robert Josefsberg by David and Deborah Humphreys, and to recognize the talent and achievements of the inaugural shareholder, Scott Sundby, Professor of Law and Dean's Distinguished Scholar. And as Julio said, and I agree with him completely, we cannot overstate the importance of endowed chairs like the Josefsberg Endowed Chair. This helps the University of Miami fulfill its mission, to be a top comprehensive research university. Endowed chairs not only ensure that we will be here in perpetuity, but ensure that our faculty have the resources needed by the faculty in their appointments to ensure that they have the opportunity to support excellence in research, to support excellence in scholarship, and among those who are in artistic areas, to support artistic creation. Accordingly, there is no more powerful tool for us to recognize, to recruit, and retain exceptional faculty talent than through endowed professorships. This, in turn, then helps us to attract amazing students. Amazing faculty beget top-notch students. And it's really the faculty, the staff, and the students that really represent the entire talent set that allows us to think about elevating the university's national and global profile. These faculty, staff, and students enrich campus intellectual life and promote cross-disciplinary research and discovery. Scott, we could not be more proud that you are receiving this wonderful recognition. And I am also delighted to introduce the couple who made this recognition possible. David Humphreys is president of Tamco Building Products in Joplin, Missouri, one of the nation's largest roofing manufacturers. He received his JD from right here at the University of Miami in 1983 and practiced insurance defense in Joplin, then moved to New York and earned a graduate degree in tax law. Before returning to Joplin to run the family business, he practiced corporate tax at Davis, Polk, and Wardwell in both their New York and their Paris offices. His wife, Deborah, holds a JD and worked as an associate at Davis, Polk, and Wardwell, and she also went on to earn an LLM in taxation. David chairs the executive committee for the Institute of Humane Studies in Washington, D.C., and also serves on Miami Law's Dean's Advisory Committee. He's done that for many years. They are both staunch believers in making educational opportunities available for young people and helping others. The Humphreys founded the Thomas Jefferson Independent Day School for pre-K through grade 12 students in Joplin in 1993. And Deborah serves as chair of the school's board of trustees, and David serves on the board of directors. They supported Miami Law for close to 4 decades, a remarkable achievement and a tremendous amount of thanks from all of us. In addition to so generously providing the endowed chair, honoring Robert Josefsberg, that we celebrate today, the Humphreys have made major gifts to the school's development fund, the scholarship fund, and I know something important to David, the Dean's Greatest Needs Fund. As President Frank stated earlier, philanthropy means love of mankind. That also defines this couple. David and Deborah, thank you both so much for your generous and steadfast support of Miami Law and the University of Miami. It's now my pleasure to invite you both up here, and on behalf of the university and the school, to present you with this certificate of gratitude in recognition of all that you have done for the University of Miami, and to invite you to make some remarks.
Thank you, Provost Derek. My wife and I are very pleased to be able to endow this chair, and it actually is in criminal justice advocacy. Originally, we thought about it being criminal defense advocacy, but I'll talk about that in a second. And we're here also to celebrate its award to Professor Scott Sundby. I want to thank my daughter, Mary Evelyn, and my law school friends who are here tonight, Cheryl Edelman, my honor council colleagues Seth Holbrook and Diane Traynor, and my first-year roommate, Gary Shanik. I also want to thank Professor Erwin Stotsky for teaching me to think like a lawyer. I'm also very grateful to the University of Miami Law School for an outstanding legal education that enabled my career path, as you heard, from a general practice firm in a small town to being a corporate tax lawyer in the New York and Paris offices of Davis Polk and Wardwell, and then to being a CEO of a building materials manufacturer. And in particular, I will always treasure my law school clinical internship with the Miami-Dade County Public Defender's Office, which forever changed my worldview about our system of criminal justice. So we are humbled and grateful to Bob Josefsberg for allowing us to name this chair in his honor. Bob is the kind of lawyer we all should aspire to be. First and foremost, he's a man of integrity, as well as thoughtful and wise. Bob counseled that this chair should be for criminal justice advocacy, not merely for criminal defense, because prosecutors, judges, law enforcement, as well as defense counsel and others, all play important roles in the pursuit of what ought to be our mutual goal, which is justice. Now, Bob is well known for his defense of rock star Jim Morrison. But Bob's representation of regular, everyday people will be his legacy. He'll be remembered for his pro bono defense of those nameless, faceless unfortunates who were arrested for driving while black, or those charged with resisting arrest in order to justify and cover up police brutality. For these people, Bob gave them more than legal representation. He gave them hope. He gave them hope for justice and hope again in their futures. Bob told me long ago that my goal as a lawyer should be to do the same someday for others in need. And I hope that I've lived up to that admonition in some small way, and that naming this chair in Bob's honor will inspire others to do the same. Thank you. The medallion reads, the Robert C. Josefsberg Endowed Chair in Criminal Justice Advocacy, Scott E. Sundby, March 24, 2023.
Thank you, David and Deborah. This wonderful idea of this gift greeted me really in my first month on the job, and It was stirring and striking to get to know David and talk about his ideas for the chair, both in terms of why he wanted to do it and why he wanted to be in this subject area, which is near and dear to my heart, and why he wanted to name it after Bob. Just a truly stirring story. And Deborah, who I only met for the first time today, she's also a leader in legal education circles as well, serving on the Board of Trustees of Brooklyn Law School, a place I know well and admire very much. So now, he sat down for a minute, but now I'll introduce Scott and ask him to come back up and say a few words himself. Scott went to law school at a place called Cornell University, which I know fairly well because I was a law student there at the same time as Scott. I was a year behind him in law school, and when I was lucky enough to get asked to serve on the Law Review as a second-year student, he was the editor-in-chief of the Law Review that year. So it's kind of a amazingly ironic full circle thing to be here together today. After law school, Scott clerked for Judge Phyllis Kravich of the 11th Circuit. He then moved immediately from his clerkship into the legal academic world, starting at what was then known as the Hastings College of Law, which now has a very complicated name involving University of California and San Francisco. He then moved to Washington Lee Law School, where he was the Sidney and Francis Lewis Professor of Law. Among other things, while at W&L, Scott served as director of the Virginia Capital Clearinghouse, a clinic at W&L that advises lawyers appointed to represent capital defendants. And just to double back for a second, Scott was interested in capital defense work, death penalty work, even in law school. I remember he wrote a very powerful, important piece of scholarship himself with a professor while a law student. It had some small influence on my own career path as well. Scott did a cool and unusual thing at one point in his academic career, which was to take a leave of absence and serve as Special Assistant U.S. Attorney here in Miami to get a prosecutor's view of the world and to get some deeper involvement on that side of the criminal justice system. In addition, he's been a visiting professor or a scholar at universities in Australia, Spain, and Argentina, and was a Fulbright Scholar and the Arthur Cox Research Fellow at Trinity College, Dublin. Scott's writings focus, as you can imagine, on criminal law and constitutional law issues, and they've appeared in many of the leading law journals in the country, including those at Virginia, Columbia, Cornell, UCLA, and the University of Texas. His work with the Capital Jury Project, funded by the National Science Foundation, has done really impactful and important work in trying to understand how juries decide whether or not to impose the death penalty in such cases, and looking at such a fascinating array of factors such as the defendant's remorse, the impact of expert witnesses, how jurors perceive the victim, and different trial strategies. His scholarship has been cited by over 60 courts, including the U.S. Supreme Court. His book, A Life and Death Decision, A Jury Weighs the Death Penalty, focuses on the human side of this decision-making by listening to how actual jurors in the same case describe the jury's decision about whether or not to impose the death penalty. And for that book, he was a 2006 finalist for the American Bar Association's Silver Gavel Award. In addition to his writings, Scott has kept a real close hand in the real world of capital defense, frequently lecturing at trainings for capital defense attorneys and using the lessons from the Capital Jury Project to assist defense teams in telling their clients' story for life before juries. He also consults and writes and testifies in matters involving the death penalty. So as you can see, hugely accomplished, well-rounded, deeply committed member of our faculty. He's here with his wonderful wife, Katie, one of their sons, Christopher, who eerily reminds me of Scott back 40 years ago. And that's all your family, right, here today? Yeah, here today. And so it's a great honor and privilege to present to you the inaugural Robert Josefsberg Chair in Criminal Justice Advocacy, Professor Scott Sundby.
Thank you very much, Dean Yellen, for those very kind remarks. Thank you, President Frank, Provost Dirk. Thank you to my colleagues and friends who are here on a beautiful Friday afternoon late. I very much appreciate you coming. Thank you to my students, past, present, and since I'm in an ebullient mood, I will extend credit to future students who I'm sure will continue to make the classroom enjoyable and remind me daily how much I still have to learn. I also want to thank the staff of the law school here. There are two people here in particular who are very special to me, Tina Sutton and Don Stadmeyer, who did as much as anyone, if not more, to make my transition here a wonderful one, and it means a lot to me that you two are here. And of course, to my family, to Christopher, who has just started practicing here in Miami, so it gives us the delight of seeing him on occasion. His wonderful wife, Taylor, who is going to be joining us later. My son, Taylor, there's too many Taylors in my family, and his wonderful wife, Jillian, who is listening in, I think, on Zoom, and as is my daughter, Kelsey, and her fiance, Matt. And of course, most of all, my gratitude to my wife, Katie, who has been with me on every step of this adventure. I think she would say long slog, but it is my day, so I'm sticking with adventure, and has really been supportive all the way. And of course, to David and Deborah for endowing this chair. And not just because of the chair, but because of all your charitable works, which really show a belief that we can leave a better future for our kids and grandchildren, which, especially in these days, gosh, we just really need, and I am so appreciative. And to Bob and Marlene, who Katie and I have had the pleasure of starting to get to know over the last couple months. I will quote one of my favorite movies, Casablanca, and say that I believe this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship, and I really look forward to it blossoming. I hope, Bob, if I provide some context, that you will understand why when Dean Yellen first approached me about filling a chair named after someone, I was a little hesitant or cautious about having my name associated with someone. As he already mentioned, the first law school that I taught at has had to change its name because the person it's associated with was not such a great person. The second law school I was at before coming here is in the throes of debating changing its name. I think we're safe at Miami, but who knows, right? But you can see why I was a little cautious, right? And Bob, I'm not saying I hired a private investigator. There is a parking ticket from 1989 in South Miami you might want to look into. But whatever qualms I had, and of course I really didn't, were so quickly allayed with so many people who spontaneously would come up to me, including a neighbor who I barely talked to, who comes running across, oh, you got a chair named after Bob Josefsberg, and you are just beloved. That is not too strong a word. And I am the one who am so fortunate to be associated with your name. As soon as I learned you had represented Jim Morrison and the Doors, I was already in the cups as a Bob fan. And everything I have learned since has just simply reaffirmed that. And even more importantly, the way you tackle the law with a sense of jubilation, I think is not too strong a word, which I hope every one of my law students realizes that the practice of law can be rewarding and fun. And you exemplify that so well. So it is a true pleasure. As it turns out, indeed, you were the one who should have hired the private investigator. And the bad news is I think once I sit in that chair, it's too late. So, so be it, right? When I was told that I was expected to make a few remarks for today, I tried to keep in mind the best advice I've ever gotten for giving talks like this, which is that it need not be witty, it need not be profound, but it does need to be brief. And so especially on a beautiful afternoon like today, I will try to keep my remarks short. But I did hope that you would provide me the indulgence of talking a little bit about why the chair means so much to me in the sense of justice. And when I first started many years ago, and my teaching and my research and my practice, I thought about justice. The chair, of course, is in criminal justice advocacy. I thought about justice with a capital J. My goal was to write that paradigm-shifting Fourth Amendment law review article before I realized people really don't read law review articles. It was to come up with that Eighth Amendment argument which would topple the death penalty. I wanted to be on the big stage with the big players and make the big impact. But as time has gone on, I've started to think about where our efforts should be focused, or at least mine, in terms of my research and my teaching, more on justice, if you will, with a lowercase j, rather than that capital J. And to sort of exemplify that and bring that home, I'm going to take a brief detour with my wife, Katie, back to the late 1980s and early 1990s when we were in the San Francisco Bay Area. And on many a beautiful afternoon, we would find ourselves out at the Oakland Coliseum, watching a team, the Oakland A's, which if you're not a baseball fan, was one of the greatest teams, certainly at the time and in history. And in these garish gold and green uniforms, they would win game after game, and they were star-studded. They had a player named Reggie Jackson, who's now in the Hall of Fame, who described himself as the straw that stirs the drink, and he was not wrong. They had a base stealer named Ricky Henderson, who whenever he got on base, you could feel the electricity fill the stadium. There were the Bash brothers, who, speaking of names you might not want to be associated with today, but this was the pre-steroid era, and they were really quite magnificent. But there was one player who I always thought was the real most valuable player of that team. It's a player that even if you're a baseball aficionado, you're probably not going to remember. He was their second baseman, a player named Mike Gallego. He's somebody who you might describe as a utility player. 239 batting average, which if you know baseball, it's nothing to sit up about. I think he hit 40 home runs over the course of his career. But he was the player who would go out every day and would give his all for the team. And he was the one who made the other players able to be great. He did the sacrifice bunt. He did the sacrifice fly to advance the players who then the big guns would come up and hit their doubles, triples, and home runs and get their picture on the front of the sporting section. This was back in the era of newspapers where you actually had a sporting section. I don't ever remember Mike Gallego being on the cover of on the front page of the sporting section. I don't even remember seeing anyone wearing a Mike Gallego jersey. But he was somebody who exemplified for me the type of person who really makes the everyday world a better place. And as I've gotten older, as I've taught more, I've started to think of justice more and more in those terms. I have been privileged to know many a lawyer who is the straw that stirs the drink, some of whom are in this room right now. In the capital defense community, where I often do give talks, it's always fun to see when they enter a room because you can see the whispers go around. It's like Beyonce or Bruce Springsteen just walked in. And I sometimes think they're reaching for that lighter and regretting giving up smoking because they want to hold up the lighter in honor of these people. And they deserve to be recognized and applauded. And they really are, especially in this day and age, necessary. But more and more, I really want to spend my time in terms of research and training and teaching, doing my best to enable those who, without fanfare, are going to be out there doing the work of justice. I thought David's introduction of, or why he explained he was endowing Bob, the chair in Bob's name, was so targeted toward what I really hope to do with this chair. I'm thinking of the public defender who has that crushing caseload. And when he or she meets with their client and the client's mother is crying, still takes the time to make them feel seen in a system that too often makes them feel forgotten. I'm thinking of the prosecutor who has that same crushing caseload and asks herself before prosecuting a case, is this the type of case that we really need to use the full force of the prosecutorial resources? And if we do, how do we make sure that this person can re-enter society? I think of the trial judge who has that stack of motions in front of him or her. And it would be so easy just to take care of it with that rubber stamp because so many of those motions have been made before. But who actually thinks about what is the best justice for this motion. And when there is a wall of precedent that looks like it's impossible to go over, looks long and hard to find that side passage, which might allow them to accomplish the greater goals. And I could go on, right? It's the social worker, it's the probation officer, it's the jurors who have done so much to make my career possible. In other words, and my students will tell you, once I get a metaphor or an analogy in my teeth, I will not let go. I want to celebrate the Mike Gallegos of the legal system, which is why, in conclusion, I want to actually hold my own little induction ceremony here, which as the president, vice president, treasurer and secretary, founding member and only member of the Order of Mike Gallego, I want to give to David and Deborah and Marlene and Bob as my new inductees our most revered symbol, which is a Mike Gallego rookie baseball card. Thank you. And it is, I hope, a fun way of expressing a very, very serious message, which is the gratitude I feel to individuals like you who really do work every day to advance the runner and to advance the cause of justice. And you make this a better world, and I really want to thank you for that. Thank you.
David and Deborah and Judge, please join us here because we're not going to pass cards, but we are going to actually sit you at the chair. There is a chair. By the way, the medallion forms part of your academic regalia. So at the next commencement, you can wear it. Thank you very much for being here. These are particularly rare occasions because it's an act of double generosity. You help the university, you help honor our faculty, but by doing so, you're also honoring a person that is deserving of that admiration. So it is usually donors name chairs in their own name. When they don't do that, it is a double act of generosity, which I do want to highlight in this occasion. So let me say that there is actually a chair, and it has an inscription on the back, which I will read. It says, the Robert C. Josefsberg Endowed Chair in Criminal Justice Advocacy, presented on March 24, 2023, to Scott E. Sundby, Professor of Law and Dean's Distinguished Scholar, School of Law, University of Miami. Professor Sundby, I hope the examples of excellence and scholarship that you have just spoken about and the aspirations you pursue will inspire many generations of those future students that you are already thanking for, and many others through your invaluable contributions. And I, again, want to express our deepest appreciation to the Humphreys for raising the bar to which others can aspire. And I want to thank you all for being witness to this extraordinary occasion on a day that not baseball, but basketball has also been a great day for our women's team today, and we hope for the men's team in a little while. Thank you all for attending this chair installation ceremony. I invite you all to join us at the reception, and please enjoy the rest of your evening.